Good morning, members. All members will please take their seats. All members, please take your seats. Mr. Clerk, will you ring the bell? All members. We're going to have the morning roll call. All members present will please vote green to signify their presence in the chamber, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machines. Doorkeepers, will you please close the doors and keep them closed? As is our custom, we will begin our day with scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. Our chaplain this morning will be introduced by the gentleman from the 75th House District, Representative Eric Bell. Representative Bell.
Thank you, Speaker, for this momentous occasion. It gives me great honor, joy, privilege, and every synonym you can think that go along to that to introduce my fellow Morehouse man, my friend, my brother, Reverend Jared Sawyer. Reverend Sawyer has been in clergy more than many of us have been in legislature, serving over 22 years, being ordained at the age of 5. Reverend Sawyer has appeared across the world on national syndications such as BBC's The Child Preacher, all around the world in 50 Faith. He's a recipient of the Trailblazer Leadership Award at Beulah Heights University, keynote speaker at the National NBA Association, keynote speaker at Howard's Paul Dillard's Foundation Awards in Washington, D.C., the first recipient of the Youth Services Awards, the 2020 recipient of the National Coalition of Black Participation in the Presidential Leadership Award, and so much more. But he's a God-fearing man, an activist, and a friend, and also a member of Greater Piney Grove under the leadership of Dr. William Flippin, which we both attend. Without further ado, please, Reverend Jared Sawyer.
Sir. Good morning. As a preacher who was born and raised in the Baptist church, I'm accustomed to giving honor where honor is due and when honor is due. So I'd like to thank my friend, Representative Eric Bell, for the introduction and for having me as his guest today. I'd also like to give honor to Speaker Burns for allowing me to speak today in these chambers. And finally, to each of you, the esteemed members of the Georgia House of Representatives. This morning, as we gather in this hallowed chamber to begin this legislative session, I invite you to take a moment to reflect on the words of Proverbs chapter 11 and 14, which reminds us that in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. So here we are today in this sacred space where diverse voices representing people from all places and sociological spaces converging in a commitment of service to the common good. This scripture offers a spiritual reminder that there is a strength that arises from unity, from collaboration, and a shared purpose. And so as we go before God in prayer, we ask God for divine guidance and inspiration as you fulfill your responsibilities to the people of this great state of Georgia. Let us remember that in the moment, that there is a mark that has been placed on each of you, a mark of service and a mark of sacrifice by the tireless pursuit of justice and the unwavering commitment to uphold the values due upon each and every member of this great state. And so as we come together in this moment of prayer, let's set aside our differences and join our hearts, join our minds in a spirit of humility, in a spirit of reverence. Let us open ourselves to the wisdom of ages past and the guiding light of faith, knowing that in the embrace of our shared humanity, we can find strength, we can find solace, and we can find hope. With these thoughts in mind, let us turn our hearts towards prayer. Dear God, as we gather in this sacred chamber, we come before you with grateful hearts, uplifted in gratitude for the opportunity to convene as representatives of the people of Georgia. We humbly acknowledge the immense responsibility entrusted to us and the solemn duty we bear to steward the welfare of our fellow citizens. Grant us, O Lord, the wisdom to discern what is just and right, the courage to act with integrity and compassion, and the humility to listen with open hearts to the voices of those we serve. May our actions be guided by principles of fairness, equality, and respect for the inherent dignity of every individual. Bless this assembly with unity and cooperation, that we may transcend partisan divides and work together in harmony for the betterment of our beloved state. Help us to recognize the humanity in one another, to seek common ground, and to approach our deliberations with humility and goodwill. We lift up in prayer those who have come before us, whose sacrifices have paved the way for the freedoms and opportunities we enjoy today. May their legacy inspire us to be worthy stewards of the trust placed in our hands and to uphold the values upon which our state was founded. In this chamber, may we respect and have civility with our guiding principles, fostering an environment where all voices are heard and differing viewpoints are valued. Grant us the grace to engage in constructive dialogue, to seek understanding, and to find solutions that benefit all Georgians. As we embark on this legislative session, we seek your divine guidance and your strength. Help us to remain steadfast in our commitment to serve with honor and humility, knowing that through our actions we have the power to make a positive and lasting impact on the lives of those we represent. May your presence be felt in these halls, O Lord, infusing our proceedings with wisdom, compassion, and grace. Bless this House of Representatives, its members, its staff, and all who enter here, now and forever. In your holy name we pray, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You're wise beyond your years, brother. Members, I will remind you that we hear some very outstanding messages. We heard one this morning, and those messages are cataloged, and we can go back and review them at the end of the session. So, Reverend Sawyer, thank you for that message. Thank you for your admonition to us and for the wisdom you've imparted to us today. So thank you for being here. We're really glad you're here. Doorkeepers, you may unlock the doors. Members, you may join Pastor Sawyer in the South Ante room and have a photo with him and make his acquaintance. Thank you for being here. So, members, our doctor of the day today is it was invited by Representative Houston Gaines, and it's Dr. Teresa Rohr Kirschgraber. We're glad to have the doctor here with us today. We appreciate her service, and if you get a chance, stop by and say hello. Chair recognizes Chairman Tarvin, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits. Chairman Tarvin.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Information and Audits has read the journal from the previous legislative day and found it to be correct. And today, just a little heads up to some of the freshmen, this is day 20. We're halfway there after today, and the pace is going to pick up. So don't wish that things were easier, just wish that you were better.
I can guarantee you I'm going to use that one. So members will understand, I have a backup that was presented to me by Chairman Tarvin for the gavel, and I have a few backups for this backup. So, Chairman Tarvin, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to dispense with the reading of the journal? Chair hears none. State your objection.
Mr. Speaker, I object to the reading of the journal, to the dispensing of the reading of the journal.
The gentleman has objected to dispensing of the reading of the journal. Mr. Clerk, will you ring the bell and let's get our members back in here so we can have a representative vote on this? Okay, we have objection, but does a gentleman move? The gentleman moves. So here's our posture. All those in favor of the objection will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the motion, the objection that we read the journal, the motion is defeated, and the reading of the journal is dispensed with. The yeas are 80, 90, what were the yeas? The yeas are 54, the nays were 96. The objection fails. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? Chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. The clerk will read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day.
Representative Strachan of the 104th moves following be established as the order of business during the first part of the period. Unanimous consents. Introduction of bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions. Second reading of bills and resolutions. Reports of standing committees. Morning orders.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? Chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. First reading of bills and resolutions, the clerk will read.
House Bill 1229 by Representative Carpenter the 4th and Tarver the 2nd. A bill be titled an act to provide a new charter for the city of Dalton.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1230 by Representative Green of the 154th. A bill be titled an act to amend an act providing a new charter for the city of Edison.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1231 by Representative Holcomb of the 81st. A bill be titled an act to amend Code Section 23, 519.2 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to eligibility requirements for Hope Scholarships.
Higher education.
House Bill 1232 by Representative Reeves of the 99th, McCollum of the 30th, Powell of the 33rd, Washburn of the 144th, Tran of the 80th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 3 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to alcoholic beverages.
Regulated industries.
House Bill 1233 by Representative Hitchens, the 164st, Stevens, the 164th, Petrie of the 166th, Vance, the 133rd, Lumpson of the 12th. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 3 of Title 25 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to local fire departments generally.
Governmental affairs.
House Bill 1234 by Representative Corbett of the 174th. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 40 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to motor vehicles and traffic.
Motor vehicles.
House Bill 1235 by Representative Meeks, the 178th, Corbett of the 174th, Smith of the 138th, Burchett of the 176th, and Persinger of the 119th. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 40 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to motor vehicles and traffic.
Motor vehicles.
House Bill 1236 by Representative New of the 64th, Alexander of the 66th, Bruce of the 61st, and Thomas of the 65th. Bill be titled an act to amend an act creating the State Court of Douglas County.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1237 by Representative Cannon, the 172nd, Corbett of the 174th, Dickey of the 145th, Meeks of the 178th, Campbell of the 171st, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Code Section 2.8.11 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to definitions regarding agricultural commodity commissions.
Agriculture and consumer affairs.
House Bill 1238 by Representative Davis, the 87th, Jackson, the 165th, Bernal, the 77th, Cummings, the 39th, and Jones, the 60th. Bill be titled an act to amend Code Section 40.2.86 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to special license plates.
Motor vehicles.
House Bill 1239 by Representative Collins, the 71st, Corbett of the 174th, Rhodes, the 124th, Jaspers of the 11th, Dickey, the 145th. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 40 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to motor vehicles and traffic.
Motor vehicles.
House Bill 1240 by Representative Reeves, the 99th, Gunner of the 8th, Leverett of the 123rd, Oliver of the 82nd, Evans the 57th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 11 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to the Commercial Code.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1241 by Representative Stone of the 40th, Cummings of the 39th, Alnulowitz of the 42nd. Bill be titled an act to amend an act creating a new charter for the city of Smyrna. Yes, sir.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1242 by Representative Neal of the 79th, Douglas the 78th, Bill of the 75th, Holly of the 116th, Bernal the 77th, and others. Bill be titled an act to create the Clayton County Public Facilities Authority.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1243 by Representative Manulowicz, the 42nd, Stoner, the 40th, Campbell, the 35th, Cummings, the 39th, Williams, the 37th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend an act changing the compensation of the clerk of the Superior Court, the sheriff, and the judge of probate court of Cobb County.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1244 by Representative Jones, the 25th, Gunner, the 8th, Powell, the 33rd, Weedower, the 121st, Hilton, the 48th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Title IX of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to civil practice.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1245 by Representative Cummings, the 39th, Smith, the 18th, Vance, the 133rd, Crow, the 118th, Neal, the 79th. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 1 and Title 35 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to general provisions regarding law enforcement officers.
Public safety and homeland security.
House Bill 1246 by Representative Manulowicz, the 42nd, Stoner, the 40th, Campbell, the 35th, Cummings, the 39th, Williams, the 37th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend an act creating the State Court of Cobb County.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1247 by Representative Leverett of the 123rd, Jones of the 47th, Lemon of the 98th, Rose of the 124th, Hilton of the 48th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 44 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to property.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1248 by Representative Leverett of the 123rd. A bill be titled an act to provide a homestead exemption from Elbert County School District ad valorem taxes.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1249 by Representative Leverett of the 123rd. A bill be titled an act to provide a homestead exemption from Elbert County ad valorem taxes.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1250 by Representative Leverett of 123rd. A bill be titled an act to provide a homestead exemption from Elbert County School District ad valorem taxes.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 1251 by Representative Leverett of the 123rd, Abstration of the 104th, Burchett of the 176th, Gunner of the 8th, Smith of the 18th. Bill be titled an act to amend Code Section 15.6.30 relating to travel expenses of judges of the Superior Courts.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1252 by Representative Scott of the 76th, Davis of the 87th, Schofield of the 63rd. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 12A of Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to smoke-free air.
Public and community health.
House Bill 1253 by Representative Anderson of the 10th, Green of the 154th, Jackson of the 128th, Corbett of the 174th, Houston of the 170th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 2, Chapter 8 of Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to regional commissions.
Governmental affairs.
House Bill 1254 by Representative Draper of the 90th, Hughley of the 141st, Rahman of the 97th, Miller of the 62nd, Manulowicz of the 42nd, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to elections and primaries generally.
Governmental
House
affairs.
Bill 1255 by Representative Jones, the 60th. Bill be titled an act to amend Code Section 5.6.42 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to procedure for preparation and filing of transcriptive evidence.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1256 by Representative Parks, the 107th, Roberts, the 52nd, Holcomb of the 81st, Clark of the 108th, and Hughley of the 141st. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 21 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to primaries and elections generally.
Governmental affairs.
House Bill 1257 by Representative Kendrick of the 95th, Stevens the 164th, Evans the 57th, and Holcomb of the 81st. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 10 of Title 10 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to the Seed Capital Fund.
Economic development and tourism.
House Bill 1258 by Representative Kendrick of the 95th. A bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 40 of Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to real estate brokers and salespersons.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1259 by Representative Moptahana of the 17th, Gullett of the 19th, Cannon of the 172nd, Daniel of the 117th, Hilton of the 48th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 16 of Chapter 1 of Title 10 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to registration and use of trademarks and service marks.
Creative arts and entertainment.
House Bill 1260 by Representative Gaines of the 120th, Jones of the 47th, Burchett of the 176th, Dickey of the 145th, Smith of the 18th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 2 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to agriculture.
Regulated Industries.
House Bill 1261 by Representative Lumsden to the 12th, Powell of the 33rd, Corbett of the 174th, and Prince of the 132nd. Bill be titled an act to amend Titles 40 and 44 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to motor vehicles and traffic.
Motor Vehicles.
House Resolution 1084 by Representative Rhodes of the 124th, Corbett of the 174th. A resolution honoring the life of Mr. Clarence Lee Mutt Rhodes Jr. and dedicating an interchange in his memory.
Transportation.
House Resolution 1085 by Representative Perkle, the 169th, and Green, of the 154th. A resolution authorizing the granting of non-exclusive easements for construction, installation, operation, and maintenance.
State Properties.
That completes first readers.
Second reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 1218 by Representative Leverett of the 123rd, Wade of the 9th, Gunter of the 8th, Oliver of the 82nd, Evans of the 57th. A bill relating to general provisions relative to probate. House Bill 1219 by Representative Silcox of the 53rd, Stevens of the 164th, Holland of the 54th. A bill relating to general provisions relative to state, county, and municipal road systems. House Bill 1220 by Representative Rhodes of the 124th, Williams of the 148th, Corbett of the 174th, Jones of the 25th, Houston of the 170th, and others. A bill relating to jurisdiction, powers, and duties generally of the Public Service Commission. House Bill 1221 by Representative Smith of the 18th, Cox of the 28th, Franklin of the 160th, Wiedauer of the 121st, McDonald of the 26th. A bill relating to student attending school and system other than the system of the student's residence. House Bill 1222 by Representative Tran of the 80th, Owl of the 50th, Park of the 107th, Hong of the 103rd, Byrd of the 20th. A bill relating to holidays and observances. House Bill 1223 by Representative Leverett of the 123rd, Petrie of the 166th, Prince of the 132nd, Jackson of the 128th, Adesanya of the 43rd. A bill to amend the Georgia Soil Amendment Act of 1976. House Bill 1224 by Representative Fleming of the 114th, Scoggins of the 14th, Dempsey of the 13th, Mathiak of the 74th, Dickey of the 145th, and others. A bill relating to tuition equalization grants at private colleges and universities. House Bill 1225 by Representative Martin of the 49th, Jones of the 25th, Hilton of the 48th. A bill relating to joint county and municipal sales tax. House Bill 1226 by Representative Hilton of the 48th, Townsend of the 179th, Mathis of the 149th, Jones of the 25th, Ridley of the 22nd, and others. A bill relating to compulsory attendance. House Bill 1227 by Representative Thomas of the 65th. A bill relating to criminal trespass and damage to property. House Bill 1228 by Representative Smith of the 18th. A bill relating to general provisions for public works bidding. House Resolution 1067 by Representative Chastain of the 7th, Burns of the 159th, Ridley of the 6th, Hatchett of the 155th, Jaspers of the 11th, and others. A resolution honoring the life of Mr. Mike Gibbs and dedicating a road in his memory. House Resolution 1083 by Representative Gamble of the 15th, Gollett of the 19th, Jones of the 25th, Townsend of the 179th, Dubnick of the 29th, and others. A resolution creating the House Study Committee on Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math workforce for Georgia's growing economy. Through second readers.
Reports of standing committees. The clerk will read.
Representative Hawkins of the 27th District, Chairman of the Committee on Health, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Health has had under its consideration following bills of the House and Senate and has instructed me to report the same back to the House. Following recommendations: House Bill 546 do pass, House Bill 1072 do pass, Senate Bill 76 do pass, House Bill 745 do pass by substitute, Senate Bill 348 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Hawkins, the 27th District, Chairman. Representative Jesse Petrie of the 166th District, Chairman of the Committee on Human Relations and Aging, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Human Relations and Aging has had under its consideration following bill of the House, instructed me to report same back to the House the following recommendations. House Bill 1078 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Jesse Petrie of the 166th District. Chairman. Representative John Corbett of the 174th District, Chairman of the Committee on Motor Vehicles, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Motor Vehicles has had under its consideration the following bills of the House and has instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 1150 do pass. House Bill 1058 do pass. House Bill 1054 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative John Corbett of the 174th District. Chairman. Representative Alan Powell of the 33rd District, Chairman of Committee on Regulated Industries, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Regulated Industries has had under its consideration the following bills of the House, instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 473 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 575 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 793 do pass. House Bill 843 do pass. House Bill 904 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Alan Powell of the 33rd District. Chairman. That completes the reading of the reports of standing committees.
Members, if I can get your attention, if you will take your seats, please. We do have an invite resolution this morning, but first, we're not quite ready for that yet, so we'll begin our morning orders. Members, when you go to the well now, we want you to acknowledge certainly our guests in the gallery, but be very conscious. We do have a time limit. We needed to be out of here by dark, I think. So, but we'll begin our day with our morning order with Representative Vance Smith and Representative David Huddleston. I have a morning order, and Representative Jenkins. The gentleman will suspend just for a moment. Members, please take your seats, or the alternative is take your conversations into the anteroom. It's a much better gathering place than creating this abundance of confusion you're creating. I guarantee y'all I don't have anything else to do today but stay here and have fun. So it's up to you. Representative Smith, you're recognized along with your friends for a very important morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We, the three of us, we do want to say we're quite honored. It is Kia Day at the Capitol. Kia is in District 138, which I have the honor of representing. That's in Troup County. It has been a huge resource for our young people that graduate school have a wonderful place to go and apply for a job. We appreciate everything they've done. They're very community-oriented, very active in Harris County and Troup County and the whole West Georgia region. And it's just a privilege and an honor to have them. So along with my fellow reps, we just want to say thank you to Kia, and we'd love for each one of us as representatives to recognize our group, and we'd love to have them stand right here in the gallery. Stuart Countess and April and Patrick and all the ones with Kia. So. We're the number one state to do business for 10 years in a row, and I have to tell you that Kia is at the top of that list for making us and giving us that title, so we're very appreciative of what they do. And they're going to be around all day. I hope you meet some of them in the hall. There's a little get-together tonight from 5 to 7 at the College Football Hall of Fame, so I hope you take a minute, come by, say hello, greet them, welcome them to the state capitol, and thank you all very much for what you do for us. Yes, sir.
Representative Smith, did you say that's the first EV that was manufactured in Georgia? It's outside this building? Is that correct?
That's correct. They're on the street. If you'll go out and look at them, EV9 is going to be produced right there at Kia West Point, and at the same time, they will also be building the combustible engine at the same time. So I've got to tell you, it's high-tech. They do a wonderful job with it. They make a wonderful vehicle. Take a moment when you go across the CLOB and glance in the cars that they have out there in the street. So it's great, Mr. Speaker, and I really appreciate the time you've given us today to recognize them.
Beautiful vehicles. Thank you, Kia, for what you do for our state, and welcome to the People's House. We're glad to have y'all. Come back anytime. Chairman Chokus is recognized for a morning order. You have about a minute, Chairman Chokus. Take your time. I don't want you to.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is NFIB Small Business Day at the Georgia State Capitol. The National Federation of Independent Businesses was founded in 1943, and for over 80 years, NFIB has given small business owners a voice in shaping public policy on issues that affects their business. The Georgia membership stands at over 7,000, and they are located in every corner of the state. So please join me in recognizing February 13th, 2024 as NFIB Small Business Day at the Georgia State Capitol. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome NFIB, a great organization. Glad to have y'all. Representative Glaze, speaking of working, has a great, she has friends, working friends that are coming with her too. So, ladies, no gentlemen, just working women.
Just working women. Thank
There
you,
we
Mr.
go.
Speaker. Today, the People's House would like to recognize and commend Georgia's working women for their contribution toward building strong families and supporting Georgia's economy. We have them with us in the gallery, if they would stand. As we remain the #1 place to do business, women comprise more than half of the workforce in the adult population. And research has shown that policies and solutions where there's salary transparency, increased paid sick days, paid leave, accessibility and affordability for child care, we will continue to have our state be the #1 state to work and women to work. So let's catch up and make sure that women and our issues are highlighted. Thank you so much, working women from Georgia.
Welcome to the People's House. Appreciate what y'all do, no doubt about it. Representative Schofield, come on back. You're recognized for a morning order. Representative Schofield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I just want to welcome some people to the House. Neighborhood planning units have been such a success in our districts to give our people a voice, to recognize the work that we do in the community. So I have some people today in the gallery that I'd like to stand up and recognize for being a strong voice in our community, our neighborhood planning units. Please stand. Thank you for coming to the People's House. We love you and our neighborhood planning units. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Schofield. Glad to have y'all here. Okay, Chairman LaHood, Chairman, let's see, Whip Burchett, Chairman Corbett, Representative Sharper, Chairman Tyler Paul Smith. Recognize members, if you will give the gentleman and the group in the well, you may want to stand.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, members, for standing with us. This time I'd like to recognize the family of Brianna Long up here in the gallery, who's come to be with us this morning to remember her. Brianna died tragically October 29th, 2023. Brianna was a student at Valdosta State University. She was from Paulding County, where she was the Miss Paulding County High. She was a varsity cheerleader, played on the soccer team, member of the Beta Club, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, wonderful young lady, had her entire adult life ahead of her, 21 years old, died tragically. And we just want to remember her this morning, along with her family. And we've got a resolution here to present to them, and just want to ask you to join us for a moment of silence. Today would have been her 22nd birthday, so thanks for remembering her with us and her family. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the family. Beautiful young lady. Chair Lady Dempsey is recognized for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning. There are a lot of people in our Capitol today, and they are all uniquely important. I ask that each of you join me to recognize today, February 13th, as Community Service Boards Day at the State Capitol. They are recognized for their long and consistent record of service to each of our communities throughout all of Georgia, for the work they do assisting children, youth, and adults suffering from serious mental illness, developmental disabilities, and addictive diseases. I stand with a grateful heart for the work that each of you do every single day with tremendous impact that improves the quality of life for these very vulnerable Georgians. Thank you for meeting individuals with diversified needs with high quality, cost-effective, life-giving care. If you would please rise and let us recognize you and thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Thank you for what y'all do. You serve many Georgians, and we appreciate that. Representative Mogul. There you are. I didn't see you. Recognized for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, colleagues. Please welcome the British Consul General, Honorable Rachel Galloway. The Honorable Rachel Galloway is the Consul General of the United Kingdom in Atlanta. She's been serving in the UK government since 2000, with her most recent position being the UK Ambassador to the Republic of North Macedonia from 2018 to 2022. Georgia and the UK are strong trading partners, where Georgia export a diverse range of goods and services to the United Kingdom, including aerospace, automobile machinery, agriculture products, importing various products from the UK, such as machinery, pharmaceutical vehicle. Last year, they were $37.2 billion in export and $91.4 billion in import between Georgia and the United Kingdom. And fun fact, this week is the 200th year of British consulate establishment in Savannah, Georgia. Please welcome British Consul General.
Welcome. We're excited that you're here. We celebrated Georgia Day yesterday, and we appreciate the partnership our countries have had over the many, many years. Thank you for being here. Could we take a photo? Representative Jenkins is recognized for a morning order.
Come on down. Need to wait till he's done, I guess. Well, good morning, friends. Today I rise to recognize the Heritage High School Key Club. If y'all will please stand. Or Heritage School Key Club. They've come all the way from Noonan down in Coweta County to join us today. This club has spent 350 community service hours this year supporting nonprofits to support children in Coweta County. And they're here to learn firsthand how to advocate for their community. This club is chartered by the Noonan Kiwanis, and they're escorted today by Coach Justin Stevens of Heritage School and Nina Blackwelder of the Noonan Kiwanis. So we thank you so much for coming today, and enjoy your stay.
Thank you all for being here. It's important that you're here, and we're really proud that y'all here, and congratulations. Representative Trey Kelly. Okay, listen up to this one, guys. It's a good one.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my honor to welcome a great group of athletes from the 16th District up in the gallery with us. We have the Cedartown High School Game Day cheerleaders who are the state champions this year in game day cheerleading. They've accomplished that after only 2 years as a program, came in third place last year, and then ultimately won the state championship this year. They had their competition the day after we finished our special session, so I had a chance to go watch them perform, and I can tell you what they do is just amazing. I know I'm very proud of them, and our whole community in Cedartown is proud of them. So if you'll just help me recognize our CHS Game Day cheerleaders, your state champions for 2024. They're up in the gallery. If y'all please stand and let us all recognize y'all.
Welcome to the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representatives Irwin, Hilton, and Ballard recognized for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and colleagues. Want to point out to you an often forgotten part of our education of our youngest students, and alert you that tomorrow is after school day here at the Capitol. Let me give you a few facts about after school. There are 1,416 after-school sites in the state of Georgia serving over 80,000 students. In summer programs, there are 639 summer program sites serving over 87,000 students. So such a valuable program, not only to our parents, our students, but also to our workforce, so that those parents can stay involved. We have some of the state directors sitting in the gallery up there. If y'all would stand, let us recognize y'all, please, and thank y'all for the effort of working with our youngest students. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That's an awesome program. Thanks. Okay, members, we have a very special opportunity for an invite resolution that also accomplishes something else. First, before we do the invite, I want you to welcome back to the People's House the long-serving Chairman of Agriculture and Consumer Affairs, my chairman, sorry, Robert, Chairman Tom McCall. Let's give Tom a round of applause. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to House Resolution 913?
House Resolution 913 by Representative Dickey of the 145th, Campbell the 171st, Huddleston of the 72nd, Meeks of the 178th, Jenkins of the 136th, and others. A resolution recognizing February 13, 2024 as Georgia Farm Bureau Federation Day at the state capitol.
I'll now recognize the chairman of the Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs, Chairman Dickey. You have big shoes to fill, brother. You've done a good job at it, too. Here you go.
Well, Mr. Speaker, thank you. And Tom McCall, my ag chairman for my whole career here too. So, but today is Farm Bureau Day, and many of you will see hundreds of them in the hallway at your office. I hope you'll greet them. Such a great organization, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce the president of Farm Bureau, Tom McCall, and his lovely wife Jane. And many of you know she's no stranger. And Tom was elected to State's House in 1994 and served ag chairman, I think, for 14 years. I've been a Farm Bureau member my whole career as I came back to the farm, and it's just absolutely the best farm grassroots organization in the country. It's not only here in Georgia, but it's in every other state. And I'm just thankful for Farm Bureau. I hope many of you engage with them on a local level in each one of the counties that you represent. So it's got a great resolution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for having the Farm Bureau here today. Tom, come to the podium.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of roughly 250,000 Farm Bureau members and probably 1,200 or 1,300 employees across your state, I want to say thank you. I know what y'all do is a lot of times not a job you get thanked for. We appreciate what you do for ag. We appreciate what you do for rural Georgia and the state of Georgia. Our whole purpose is to represent farmers in the legislative arena. Y'all are the legislative arena, and that's what we do. We have around 600 people here today. I want to invite each and every one of y'all to the depot at dinner time if y'all want some good food and to meet with people that live in your district. This morning we have my first Vice President, Mr. Daniel Johnson from Pierce County, Middle Georgia Vice President, Mr. Ralph Caldwell from over in Heard County, and I just want you to know how much I appreciate y'all. I appreciate you being yourself. I appreciate you not ever forgetting where you come from. And I appreciate my good friend, the speaker, who was my suite mate for a while, and his chief of staff, who was my seat mate right back there where Doc and Buddy DeLoach sit. I sat right, the only place I sat in 26 years was right there, and right there where Jody Lott sits. So thank y'all very much for what you do. We look forward to working with you. And I got him. What? I'm getting orders from my boss who always does that. Robert, thank you for everything you do. Okay, all right. I appreciate y'all. Appreciate what you do for us.
I want to translate what the chairman said about dinner, y'all. If you're raised on the farm, and if you live on the farm, that's 12, not 6 p.m. It's not lunch, it's dinner, right? Just wanted to make sure y'all didn't show up for dinner tonight down at Depot, thinking they were going to be down there. So they'll be down at Depot, so we'll welcome them. In about an hour. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for what Farm Bureau represents for the values of our state. Many wonderful members and many members of Farm Bureau that take advantage of the benefits that Farm Bureau brings to Georgia. Thank y'all for what y'all do. You have a birthday tomorrow, is that right there, Chairman McCall? You have a birthday tomorrow? Happy birthday, by the way. A little bit early, a little bit early. Representative Lim is recognized for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is New Americans Day at the Capitol, and I wanted to welcome the New Americans as well as the Coalition of Refugee Service Agencies here. About 1 in 8 Georgia workers are foreign-born, and that includes myself as well as colleagues in both parties. Many of them are here today. If they would stand up, if they aren't already standing up. And I personally wanted to thank you for being here, for taking part in our democracy in a way that so many of us in our ancestral countries would never ever be able to do because we weren't born into it or hold the wrong views. In this way, I also want to recognize that what is a right for all of us is something that is both deeply held as a privilege as well as something that can be quite daunting because of the power that it holds both when it is there and when it is absent. So thank you again for being here. I hope you feel welcome and not totally scared the way I did when I was first at the Capitol. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
Thank you, and a great group to recognize. Thank you for doing that. Representative Anderson, recognize. Oh, you're going to bring Chairman Gunther with you? Yes, sir. He's a good man. Chairman Gunther and Representative Anderson are recognized.
Let me repair the microphone here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, today I would like to recognize a group we have here today that came all the way down from the farthest, most northeast nether regions of the state of Georgia. We have a group from Rabun County. I believe they're over here to my right. If y'all stand up and let us recognize you. We've got 22 people total, mostly students from Rabun County High School, Tallulah Falls, and Rabun Gap Nakuchi School, both the high school group and the Forward Rabun Youth Leadership Group, along with Mr. Rick Story and Mr. Justin Shook. They're chaperones today. So if y'all will help me in welcoming them to the People's House. Thank you.
Absolutely. Welcome. Glad to have y'all. Come back soon. Representative Brad Thomas is recognized for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is Engineers Day at the Capitol. I'd like to thank the American Council for Engineering Companies for putting this together. Engineers combine creativity, ingenuity to make the innovations of Georgians enjoy every day. With 23,590 active licensed professional engineers in Georgia, the industry contributes almost $8.7 billion to our state annually and employs 34,000 people throughout the industry. Their work ensures that we have clean water, reliable power, safe buildings, durable roads and bridges. We have several engineers in the gallery today. If they'd please stand up so we can acknowledge them for everything that they do for our community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With that, I yield the well.
That concludes our morning orders. We're going to move on to the rules calendar. Move on to the rules calendar. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to House Resolution 1019, 1019.
House Resolution 1019 by Representative Saints of the 180th, Jaspers the 11th, Ridley the 22nd, and others, a resolution supporting increased protections for America's borders and for other purposes. This resolution having been referred to the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security, that committee recommends that this resolution be adopted.
Before I recognize Chairman Saines to present the bill, in his wisdom, the Rules Committee has allowed us to debate this question pursuant to House Rule 33.3. Time will be allocated to those and to the presenter, the chairman, the sponsor, we have a minority report, and we have folks signed up to speak in favor of and opposed to the proposition. So with that, we will get it started. We'll ask Chairman Saines to present the bill. He must have got locked out when I locked the doors, I guess. I'm not sure. Chairman Saines is recognized to present House Resolution 1019. Members, if you will give the gentleman in the well your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We're not ready yet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We're not ready yet.
Okay.
That anteroom is empty. I can see it. So if you've got conversations going on in the chamber, you need to take them to the anteroom. Or members, take your seats. Members, please take your seats. Chairman Saines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members on the floor. House Resolution 1019 is a simple bill that makes clear that Georgia is leading where our federal government is failing. They're failing to secure our southern border. They're failing to ensure the safety of our families all around this state and around this nation. And they're failing to properly address the drug epidemic that has been plaguing our communities. House Resolution 1019 simply empowers our governor to provide the resources necessary in the state-led coalition to secure the southern border of our U.S. and Mexico line. With that, Mr. Speaker, I am happy to take any questions if there are any.
You have some questions.
I yield.
The lady to your left, no, excuse me, I'm sorry. Minority Whip has a question. Representative Park, I apologize, my bad.
Not at all, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
Is it not true that Donald Trump explicitly called for Republicans to vote against a bipartisan national security agreement border bill, even though it would have massively eased illegal immigration?
I'm proud of President Trump's record of ensuring our border wall when those in the other party did not want it and did not find it necessary. When President Biden called attention to our southern border a distraction from important items are facing our nation, I'm proud he led then, and I'm proud that our state is now leading where our federal government is failing.
Does the gentleman further yield?
Yes.
Is it not true that Republican United States senators, within the past week, they succumbed to pressures from former President Donald Trump that stopped the advancement of a bipartisan United States Senate bill that would have sent billions of dollars to the border for security purposes, in which, rather than actually fix the problem with bipartisan support, it seems Republicans at the federal and state level are now wanting to perpetuate a problem for political gain. Is that not true?
Mr. Minority Whip, I think the bill presented in Congress is as flimsy as this tissue sitting before you, and I'm proud that our state is not going to let detraction and distraction from our federal counterparts take effect in ensuring that our state addresses, in partnership with Republican governors all around the nation, securing our southern border.
Thank you.
Gentleman, yield.
I yield for one more question.
I think he had his button mashed first, so Chairman Corbett, to your right. is recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I do for a friend.
Is it not true that instead of build back better, if we would put it back like he found it, we'd be much better off? Is that not true?
I think a lot of things could be better during the previous, detracting the previous 4 years and going back to economic growth and prosperity we faced both in all Georgians and minority Georgians as well. We're all better off with the pre-build back something. With that, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield to well if there's no questions.
We have a couple of speakers on this bill, so the gentleman has yielded the well. Now we have 30 minutes allocated for those that are opposed to the bill. It's how the chair will allocate the time. So we'll start with those opposed. Representative Rahman, are you ready? The lady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, today I rise before you in strong opposition to House Resolution 1019. I'm an immigrant. I am somebody who came to this country when I was 7 years old, and my parents and I have been living in Georgia ever since. This was all the way back in 2001. We were incredibly lucky, and the key word here is lucky, that we were not snagged by an inefficient immigration system that we have not been fixing for decades. There are people that I personally know that have come around the same time that I have or before us that were not as lucky. They have been doing everything right, just like we try to do everything right, and because they happen to be assigned to the wrong agent, happen to be assigned to the wrong office, happen to be assigned to a different judge, they're in a very, very different immigration status than mine. These are people that I love. These are people that I know. And instead of working to ensure that they no longer have to constantly live in stress and fear about what the next week is going to bring and focus on contributing to the communities that they love and have thrived in, we're worried about messaging for our mailers this election cycle. Because here's the reality. Unlike the overwhelming majority of people in this chamber, I've actually worked on projects related to the border. Does that surprise you? It shouldn't. And as somebody who's done work related to the border, I can tell you and assure you that contrary to what you heard from this well right here, 10 million people are not flooding across our borders. It's physically not possible. Literally not possible. What we see at our borders is not what you guys are seeing on TV. Because remember, and we see this all the time in our profession, I can watch one part of a screen and completely ignore everything else. I can edit videos to make things look better or worse than they actually are. But here's what I did see at the border. That was a problem that was fixed. We had unaccompanied children coming to the border that were being trafficked, right? And you know what this administration did at the very beginning? They fixed that problem. It was the first time a child didn't die in our custody in 4 years. Yes, children died at the border because of bad policies that were great for mailers, phenomenal for mailers, amazing for political talking points. But children died. There were people that came in and fixed it. People whose names we will never know. So instead of talking about that, instead of recognizing, hey, things have become incredibly inefficient and dangerous and we need to fix it, we've seen deals on the table that, I'll be honest with you, were deals that I am completely opposed to. But deals that, from my understanding, people that want that kind of a border fix should have wanted. Instead, they rejected it time and time and time again. But I will tell you this. We are not going to fix our fentanyl crisis. We're not going to fix our immigration crisis. We're not going to fix our quote-unquote border crisis if we continue down this path. Because the other thing about this resolution specifically that concerns me, in addition to the fact that it tends to restate facts that are incorrect, is the fact that it is leading us down a dangerous road as it relates to our Constitution, as it relates to the separation of powers, as it relates to our responsibility as a state versus as a country. I know that sometimes we end up so caught up in our political atmosphere that we forget there are real implications, both legal and other implications for real people. But these things are real. When we start talking about mobilizing the National Guard in certain states against federal agents, that should be concerning. What precedent are you setting? Imagine for 5 seconds that a different political party than your own controlled the state that you care about, which is this one. And imagine that they had done that. Everybody would be rightfully up in arms. There is a reason we have the separation of powers. There is a reason we have this delineation of responsibility. And if we continue down this road, if we continue to scapegoat people who all they want to do is provide for their families, who back in the day used to come here, work on our farms, and then go home because the border allowed for that, because our immigration system allowed for that. Now they can't do that. And they are forced to choose between providing for their families or letting them starve. And we have to choose, as business owners and as farm owners, to either let our crops die and not provide the services we promised our customers, or we can fix this problem. So I hope, sincerely hope, that for a lot of you, you will rethink this resolution. I think it's dangerous. I think that it might be great for politics, but I think it's bad for people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the floor.
The lady has yielded. Representative Jasmine Clark is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning, colleagues. Today I rise to speak to the people who constantly find themselves, their families, and their communities in the crossfire of political warfare. When I ran for the Georgia State House of Representatives, I ran to support state policy that improves the quality of life for all Georgians. I ran to improve people's access to health care, to protect reproductive rights, to improve our schools, things like that. What I did not run for was to carry water for the former president and his hateful rhetoric. I came here to be solution-oriented and to push the policies that increase the quality of life for all in our state. That is why I cannot support a resolution today that attempts to prop Donald Trump up as some sort of hero. Under the Trump administration, there was no significant, comprehensive immigration reform. Only talks of building walls and profiling anyone with brown skin or a Spanish-sounding name as possibly being undocumented and likely being a criminal. I will not place on a pedestal a man who was responsible for one of the darkest days in our nation's history as a violent mob led an insurrection in an attempt to disrupt our democratic processes just because that man could not accept the results of an election. Instead of this resolution, I will point out that the people in Congress that are more interested in actually solving the problem than kissing the ring of Trump have come up with bipartisan immigration reforms. Is it everything that I want? Absolutely not. However, it is a compromise that gives a little and takes a little, but it is more than what this resolution that we are voting on today provides. And this bipartisan bill, ironically, is supported by the U.S. Border Patrol Union. And to be clear, this union, this group of people, these are the same people that actually supported Trump in 2020. Even they say that this bipartisan deal is a good thing. So instead of voting for this resolution, which doubles down on hatred and divisiveness and elevates Trump as some sort of savior and will undoubtedly be used for campaign purposes to prop up MAGA Republicans and attack Democratic candidates like myself, I will highlight and support bipartisan, solution-oriented proposals that will actually get the job done. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
Representative Becky Evans is recognized to speak to the bill. Representative Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in opposition to House Resolution 1019. Although this resolution does not have the force of law, and even though we are here in Georgia, in the Georgia House, we have no jurisdiction over the American border with Mexico or with Canada for that matter, I do want to take a moment to address the false narrative that Republicans are spreading. Although my colleagues are trying to build a narrative that they are the party for immigration management and border security, the facts here show that this is false. History and facts show us that time and time again, it is Republicans that have failed to secure our border by failing to consider comprehensive immigration reform. Let's go back to May of 2006 when Republicans controlled both the U.S. House and the Senate. Riding in the hills, Stuart Vettery gave us the rundown. House Republicans passed an enforcement-only bill known as the Sensenbrenner Bill, and the Senate passed the bipartisan Comprehensive Immigration Reform Act. But both bills under Republican leadership were never conferenced or never reconciled. Then, in 2007, when Democrats controlled the U.S. Senate, the Senate debated the Kennedy-Kiel Comprehensive Immigration Reform Act of 2007. They debated this bill for a month on the floor, but it failed to overcome a Republican filibuster. Then Senator Biden was a yes vote for that legislation. In 2013, the U.S. Senate, taking the lead again through the bipartisan Gang of Eight, brought forward the Border Security Economic Opportunity and Immigration Modernization Act. This was a massive and comprehensive bill with 67 votes, but the Republican-controlled House refused to take it up. In 2018, the government shut down after negotiations between President Trump and the Senate Democrats to pair Dreamer legislation with enforcement provisions failed. There were several opportunities for securing the border, none of which compares to the most recent debacle that we just witnessed when President Biden requested funding for American allies facing the gravest wars and threats to their very existence, along with border security measures. Border security measures that included asylum reform, border wall funding, emergency border authorities, $48 million for fighting fentanyl trafficking, and asylum work eligibility. But Republicans said no. Now let's focus on what this resolution is asking us to do. We can all get behind increasing protection for Americans' borders and ending illegal immigration and smuggling and ending this fentanyl crisis. We cannot, however, support donating Georgia's resources to another state without sufficient consideration and debate. This resolution is not the path we should take legally or politically or practically. Congressional Republicans have said, as you just heard, we can't support funding for Ukraine before we secure our borders. And Democrats said, let's deal. You've heard that this was a big conversation between Democrats to say, are we going to do this? But Democrats did say, let's deal. And over the last 4 months, a bipartisan group of U.S. senators negotiated a thorough and conservative approach to border security. but yielding to demands from former President Trump, who apparently doesn't see the illogic in trying to blame Democrats for the situation at the border, while blocking efforts undertaken by Republicans and Democrats to fix the situation as the American people want and deserve. While the MAGA base may not notice that it is Trump and the Republicans that just blocked a solution, the rest of the American public will. Congressional Republicans do unfortunately appeal to non-action versus taking action in the face of Trump's dictates, which keep us gridlocked when we should be working for the good of the people. In this latest deal, President Biden led on border security. The U.S. Republicans failed the American people. This act will do nothing to secure the border, and I urge you to vote no on this resolution. Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
The lady has yielded the well. Representative Park Cannon is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Estoy aquí en contra de esta medida y les pido que les voten en contra. ¿No sabes lo que estoy diciendo? Por eso no sabes lo que haces. Estoy orgullosa de ser una georgiana que habla español y ama a los hispanohablantes. Es por eso que hoy estoy pidiendo para expresar mis condolencias a los georgianos que ven cómo se utiliza el gobierno como agente de xenofobia. A mis compañeros les pregunto, ¿cómo llegó a esta familia aquí? ¿Cómo? Por inmigrar. Estimados ciudadanos de Georgia, es esencial que sepa son valoradas y respetadas y en esta tierra que todos llamamos hogar. Nadie merece vivir con miedo o ser perseguido por quienes son. Todos merecen una vida libre de persecución y discriminación. El acto de cruzar hacia la seguridad y la libertad es un derecho humano fundamental y refleja los valores fundamentales de lo que América representa. En nuestro país, damos la bienvenida a aquellos que buscan un futuro mejor, anhelando paz y oportunidades para ellos y sus seres queridos. La diversidad es nuestra fuerza y juntos construimos comunidades más fuertes y prósperas cuando abramos nuestras diferencias. Es crucial recordar que la migración es una historia compartida con muchos en esta nación y es parte de lo que nos hace grandes. En este momento crucial debemos unirnos en solidaridad para apoyar y proteger a aquellos que buscan seguridad y refugio. Nuestro compromiso con la justicia y la compasión exige que extendamos una mano amiga a aquellos necesidades, independientemente de su origen o procedencia. So I ask you today, did anyone understand what I just said? There might be a few who understood, who might speak Spanish in here. But for those of you who did not understand, I ask you to vote no, because you do not understand of which you are putting forward this measure today, and I yield the well.
The lady has yielded the well. Representative Campbell is recognized to speak to the bill. Representative Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colleagues, this morning I stand at the well to oppose H.R. 1019, a disrespectful piece of legislation that not only sows political and cultural division, but is chock full of blatant campaign rhetoric, which is against the rules of this chamber, and misleading information about a serious fentanyl crisis. Not only is this resolution anti-American, it is loaded with hateful, anti-public safety, anti-government, and anti-legal immigration policies. By taking 535 immigration actions over its first 3 years, I'm proud to share that our President Biden and his administration has already outpaced the 472 immigration-related executive actions undertaken in all 4 years of the former president's term. And partly as a result of these legal efforts, legal immigration is returning to, and in some cases surpassing, pre-pandemic levels, including refugee admissions on pace to reach the highs of the 1990s. A new border process seeking to discourage irregular arrivals has been adopted. These are positive changes that have been made. Temporary humanitarian protections have been extended to hundreds of thousands of migrants, and enforcement priorities have been focused on narrower categories of unauthorized immigrants. These are the facts about what is happening in America today. And combined, these changes have helped bolster the U.S. economy and reduce fears of seemingly arbitrary enforcement against removable non-citizens. In addition to completely ignoring the recent bipartisan congressional response to control illegal immigration, this resolution furthers misinformation about fentanyl. And yes, we all know that fentanyl overdoses tragically caused tens of thousands of preventable deaths last year. And many politicians who want to end U.S. asylum law claim that immigrants, as does this resolution, crossing the border illegally are responsible. A more accurate summary is that fentanyl is overwhelmingly smuggled by U.S. citizens almost entirely and sadly for U.S. consumers. Here are the facts. Fentanyl smuggling is ultimately funded by U.S. consumers who pay for illicit opioids. Nearly 99% of our U.S. citizens. In 2021, U.S. citizens were 86.3% of convicted fentanyl drug traffickers, 10 times greater than convictions of illegal immigrants for the same offense. More than 90% of fentanyl seizures occur at legal crossing points or interior vehicle checkpoints, not illegal migration routes. So U.S. citizens, who are usually subject to less scrutiny when crossing legally, are the best smugglers, unfortunately. The location of smuggling makes sense because hard drugs at ports of entry are about 97% less likely to be stopped than people crossing illegally between them. And just 0.02% of the people arrested by Border Patrol for crossing illegally possessed any fentanyl whatsoever. And these are the facts. And the government exacerbated this problem by banning most legal cross-border traffic in 2020 and 2021. Rather than put forward legislation to help solve this growing crisis and problem, sponsors of this legislation are engaging in fear-mongering, wasting our tax dollars and our time today with their presidential campaign politics. After collapse of a bipartisan border security bill, Republicans have flip-flopped on the issue of national security, opposing their own painstakingly drafted solution because they want chaos at the border. And rather than pull Georgians together, this resolution seeks to divide Georgians and Americans. And on this new American Day at the Capitol, I want to reassure our newly immigrated citizen guests today that you are welcome here in this chamber. Georgians, sponsors of this bill, could have spent their time wisely contacting their elected representatives in D.C. and encourage passage of the bipartisan Senate bill instead of publishing this resolution. And finally, I want to share a little of my personal story. I was born in El Paso, and with personal family experiences from the Texas border. And this is another area of the immigration story that is being overlooked in this resolution. Most businesses and coalitions in Texas support legal immigration. And new research from the economic contributions of immigrants in El Paso was released this year by Texans for Economic Growth, a statewide 145-plus member business coalition powered by the American Immigration Council in partnership with the Borderplex Alliance and the Texas Association of Business, which underscores the crucial role that legal immigrants play in Texas's sixth largest city. And from the report, they state, El Paso has always been a city of immigrants. Immigrants in Texas contribute billions to our GDP. They help drive our economy and create jobs for all Texans. In El Paso, immigrants make up a large part of the workforce. They are our teachers, our doctors, our lawyers, and our business owners. They're an integral part of our city and our economy. Immigrants are a key part of our workforce, and they are positive to our city, our state, and our nation. Today, I remain proud to support our American President, Joe Biden, and I'm committed to working together to build bipartisan, positive legal immigration programs, policies, and infrastructure that address legal and illegal immigration. And I urge everyone in this chamber to stand up for America and vote no on this resolution. Thank you. I yield the well.
The lady has yielded the well. That completes those opposed. Now we have those in favor that will speak in favor. You will have up to 30 minutes. Governor's Floor Leader, Representative Will Wade, is recognized to speak to the bill. Representative Wade.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, colleagues, fellow Georgians, and fellow Americans. I rise today to tell you why I believe this is an important resolution and why Georgia should support the efforts in Texas at the border. The number one responsibility of our federal government is to execute the law and keep Americans safe. Joe Biden and D.C. liberals have failed to live up to this responsibility, which is why we need to be united to defeat this issue and not working against ourselves. Because of the failure in D.C., it's unfortunate, but every state is now a border state. More than 8.5 million illegal immigrants have crossed the border since Joe Biden became president. Governor Kemp has visited the border 5 times and spent time with our National Guard troops stationed there. These are our fellow Georgians, folks. The Georgia National Guard has maintained a continuous presence at the at the U.S. southern border in Texas since 2019, which also includes a senior officer, one of our very own major generals, currently conducting aerial surveillance of the southern border, which allows us to cover more ground and notify Border Patrol agents of any illegal activity to help in the effort to do what? To execute the law. Under Governor Kemp, Georgia joined the American Governor's Border Strike Task Force, a task force that was created because the federal government has failed to do its job. This is formed to increase collaboration, improve intelligence, invest in analysis, combat human smuggling, and to stop drug flow in our states. Governor Abbott and the state of Texas has Georgia's full support. States have a right of self-defense. These are some of the threats that we are now dealing with as state legislators in this state and in other states across this country. The deadly drugs seized at the border just in November of 2023, over 1,700 pounds of fentanyl, nearly 16,000 pounds of methamphetamines. 169 people on the terror watch list were encountered at the southern border just in fiscal year 2023, an all-time record high. Fentanyl seizures just in Georgia due to the borders not being secured. In 2022, fentanyl seizures totaled 13,063 grams and 2,541 pills were seized. That's what we seized. what's still out there, folks. In 2023, those seizures totaled 20,251 grams to 7,000 gram increase, and additionally 991 pills were seized. This is a national security issue, folks. This is bigger than just immigration. This is about the safety of our children and our grandchildren and our future generation. I support Governor Kemp in his effort, and we must make sure that we send a resounding message that we believe in the rule of law and that we want to protect our fellow Georgians and Americans. Thank you, sir.
Gentleman has yielded well. Chairman Jaspers is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. I rise to speak in support of House Resolution 1019. Thank you, Floor Leader, for all those facts that you put along with it. I'm proud to support our governor, who stood with 12 other governors 2 weeks ago recently in support of Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, in defense of their border. The fine folks that I'm honored to represent, they're concerned, they're outraged, and they want concrete action to curb the invasion of our counties and our southern borders. It is a fact that millions of people have crossed our border illegally in the past few years. The Biden administration has stood by as cartels and others have human trafficked an untold number of immigrants, putting many of them in modern day slavery. These cartels have also been an unbelievable pipeline of illegal drugs and toxic drugs that have killed people in your community and mine. My concern was very concreted the other day when I saw a video of who I felt were very military-looking Chinese men walking into our country. They were joined by Middle Eastern men who were certainly not from Central America. The current administration has turned a blind eye to what these illegal immigrants might do to our country. I can foresee untold sleeper cells that will attack our country, create new gangs in our state, and further push drugs into our community. As the resolution clearly states, Texas has the right in our national constitution to protect their border. By them protecting their border, they protect our country and our state from the scourge of illegal drugs, slavery, and whatever it brings with it. I, like most of the people in this room, is a descendant of an immigrant, a legal immigrant that came here to be a part of something great. And as my constituents have no problems with legal, logical immigration policy that maintains a secure border, I will agree they need to do reform in D.C. But I want to say again, I recognize and support Governor Kemp in his actions to support our neighbors in Texas and assist them in protecting our nation's border and our state. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Chairman Petrie, you're recognized to speak to the bill. The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wasn't going to speak today, but I've heard so many things that I felt compelled to speak to. First of all, let's take up this issue of this week's U.S. Senate bill that failed. All right, first of all, I want everyone here to recognize something. You can Google this if you like. Section 212F of the Immigration and Naturalization Act. My friends, the President of the United States already, today, right now, has absolute authority to restrict or suspend entry into the United States by proclamation. Okay? Just look that up. This is an issue I'm pretty knowledgeable of. My friends, first of all, if you really believe passing a new bill to try to keep illegal immigrants out of this country would be enforced by the Biden administration. Well, you're living in fantasy land because they're ignoring all of our illegal immigration bills today. Having said that, let me tell you more about this bill. The bill in the Senate that failed due to Republicans rightly ignoring it, first of all, it was a complete hoax. And what it did was expand the authority to allow bureaucrats to award asylum without even using judges. There's a multitude of reasons. You can look at the funding, how little was really about immigration, and how much of it was moreover about the borders of other nations across the globe. So let's just get our facts straight on that. There's been some comments made about national security. I want to mention to you, I just sat there at my desk Googling, looking up a few things. 3 recent articles. These are all from February. Pakistani illegal immigrant on the terror watch list. Make sure I can read this. Given free day of release in U.S. That's February 9. Feds nab Afghan illegal immigrant on terror watch list, February 13. Illegal immigrant admits past terrorism ties after crossing border, memo shows. That's February 8th. My friends, this is an issue of national security. It's an issue of public safety. This is a real issue. Listen, I heard some conversation in here where we oftentimes misuse the language. The topic here today is illegal aliens. It is not immigrants. Okay, there's a huge difference. Immigrants do not require amnesty. And so immigrants are not the conversation today. The topic is illegal immigration, illegal aliens. So, you know, we talk a lot in this chamber about human trafficking, right? We pass a lot of bills. We talk about human trafficking. We talk about fentanyl, 100,000 deaths a year from fentanyl. We talk a lot about that. But it seems like we don't care that almost all of that fentanyl is coming across the border. Human trafficking, how much of that is coming across the border? A great deal of it. We talk about crime. I mentioned to you about 3 weeks in here, the almost 1,600 criminal aliens with ICE detainers alone. That doesn't mention, that's not all of them, just those at ICE detainers in the Georgia correctional system for violent crimes. We talk about housing in here. We talk about housing, workforce housing all the time, don't we? And yet 10 million people have been allowed to move into the country illegally. How does that affect housing? We talk about all these things that are important to the people we actually were elected to represent. And we don't recognize, shame on us if we don't recognize how this issue today affects those people that we represent. Mr. Speaker, I've heard a lot today. I'm going to leave it at that. I mentioned the other day 67% decrease in deportations of criminal aliens by the Biden administration. I've heard my friends on the other side today talk about how important it is that they deal with border security in this country, and there's not a person in this room, not one, not a person in this state, not a person in this country that believes that is true. The first thing this president did when he took office was make that border less secure, and everybody knows it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Gentlemen, yielded the well. Representative Hilton is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's make no mistake, there is a humanitarian crisis at our southern border right now. And this is the direct result of the Biden administration's actions. Day one, trying to end Remain in Mexico, beginning a catch and release policy. They are actually fighting against states' efforts, Texas's efforts to implement policies to secure our border. A nation without borders is not a nation at all. It places Georgia citizens at risk, it places all of us at risk. There's been a lot of talk about Congress. Congress has passed all the laws they need. We just need an administration who is willing to actually enforce the laws that we already have in place and not work against them. There's been talk about fentanyl. 1,500 Americans die every single week from fentanyl overdose, and that's getting worse and worse under the Biden administration. Everyone in this room has been touched by it. My family had family members in the state of Ohio, 18-year-old young man, bright future, football player, incredible student, took a bad dose one night, overdosed on fentanyl, is now dead. It touched our family. It touches all of our families here in this room today. But this is a bipartisan issue. There should be no debate on this. This became an issue when mayors of Chicago, mayors of New York, mayors of every major city across our country have reached out to the Biden administration and said, stop, reverse it. What are you doing? This is harming us and our citizens. Democratic cities have woken up to the issue and said enough is enough. But why is this important to us in this room here today? We live in one of the most diverse, greatest states in this country. I have the distinct honor of representing one of the most diverse districts in our state. My district is comprised of hardworking Asians, Indians, Hispanics who have all come to Georgia and done it the right way. And what the Biden administration is doing is a slap in the face to them who have come here and done it the right way. And I urge you to vote yes on House Resolution 1019. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Chairman Carpenter is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm sick and tired of this crap. I'm going to vote for this resolution because the federal government continues to wet the bed at the border. It is ironic that the Democrats at the federal level have decided to make a deal on this issue when in fact there was a deal 7 years ago on the table that would allow the DACA students in this state a pathway to citizenship, and they chose not to take it because they did not want to protect the southern border. Neither side on this issue wants to solve it. I have been working tirelessly for 5 years on legislation to educate these individuals. So federal government, fix the border, and my friends in this room, help me show these individuals that we see your value and that we know Georgia's a better place with you. Protect the border.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Representative Martinez is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To quote my colleague, I'm sick of this crap.
All right.
I wasn't.
We have some rules on our language, so let's keep it where it should be.
All right, take it. I wasn't ready to come speak to this bill just today, but you don't want to get a Latino fired up. Very, very impressive, Representative Cannon. I know Spanish too, but I'm not going to pander to my community. I respect this body. I respect the state. And in this country, we speak English. My parents came here from Cuba. You guys know. I take this very personal. Many years ago when I was a boy. And I support immigrants. My parents waited in line to get that green card to follow the American dream. I was born in Puerto Rico. You guys know that. They did it legally. Legally. I love my immigrants. I got a lot of immigrants, including my family, including friends, but they're here legally. Let me tell you what's going on the border right now. Just in the month of December, you guys remember back in the day, I'm sure you all know, the Mariel boat lift, Mariel, Cuban folks came from Cuba in Miami. I was a young boy when those Mariel boat lift Cubans came, boats 90 miles from Cuba to Key West, 100,000. That was a wave. That was huge back in the day. That was huge for the Miami-Dade County community. You know what the numbers are now? Just in October of 2023, just in 1 month, 240,000, just in 1 month, encounters at the border. November, 242,000. Remember, Cuba, in a span of years, 100,000. In December, we broke an all-time record. December, 2 months ago, 302,000. 202,000 illegally. Now, I'm going to tell you something. These are not my Latino friends that are the only ones that are coming in that border. These are not the only ones. These are not the Hispanic population. We got in 2023, we got 24,000 overall encounters coming from China. Coming from China. 21,000 of those, 21,000 of the 24 are single adults. They're not little kids, they're not moms. Those are single adults that are coming. So far this year, we got 2 months into 2024, 9,000 overall encounters from China, just China alone, 9,000. Out of those, 8,000 are single adults. I wonder what they're up to. I wonder what those single adults from China are up to. We don't know. We can only guess. But those are encounters where they're not being checked. Mr. Speaker, I come up here. I wasn't ready to speak, but I come up here in support of House Resolution 1019 because let me tell you, as a Latino, have been for over 50 years, I speak to my friends. You know who's for that? You know who's against illegal immigration? You know who's against illegal? Hispanic community, my people. Because like my parents, they waited in line. They did it the right way. They did it the right way. They don't like somebody just all of a sudden skipping the line. How would you like it if you're standing in the lunch line and you stood there for about an hour and all of a sudden somebody cuts in front of you? You have an attitude, wouldn't you? Well, that's how Hispanics feel. The ones that came here legally and they follow the laws. This is a country of laws. If we don't obey our laws, we're done. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield the well. Thank you.
Gentleman has yielded the well. I'll remind all members, every one of us, I did not think the gentleman's comment was disrespectful, but the rules of this House require us not to call a member of this House by name. And I expect the members of this House to comply with the rules of etiquette in this House. We debate these very strong, we all have very strong feelings about issues that come before us. So I'll ask every member of this House to comply with those rules as we go through the next 20 days of this session. Or, since we're all on notice, your time at the well will be suspended. Fair enough? We do have a minority report. But first, is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Now we have a minority report. Whip Park, you have up to 30 minutes to present your 20 minutes. Oh, I was giving you extra 10 minutes there. Man, I like you a lot, but you're only getting 20. You have 20 minutes to present the minority report. Whip Park.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I will apologize ahead of time for some of how my remarks may come across. This is ridiculous. What a waste of time that we are on legislative day 20 debating a resolution, the main point of which is to condemn our current president on lines 39 and 40. What a shame that this is the priority of the majority party, essentially because the governor, I hear, is having a press conference at 3 o'clock today and wants us to do his will and furthering his politics as opposed to addressing the real challenges that Georgians face today. Now, as I had asked in my first question to the sponsor of this bill, is it not hypocritical to say that there is this huge problem at our southern border, and yet at the same time prevent any sort of real bipartisan action in Congress to send billions of dollars for enforcement purposes because the twice impeached President Donald Trump commanded the Republican Party to do his bidding? You know, for me, growing up in Georgia, I had a lot of family members who are Republican, but not today's Republican Party. This issue is yet another reminder that today's Republican Party, that there does not seem to be patriots, that there does not seem to be men and women of courage willing to stand up to a dictator to do what's best for this country, to do what's best for America and protect our southern border. Just like Republicans spewed lies about Democrats not caring about public safety, lies about how we all want to defund the police, yet again, more lies, and that Democrats don't care about the southern border, that Democrats want to invite illegal immigration, when there are physical actions taken yet ignored clearly by members here in this body, by talking heads out in the media, because they want to put politics and the pursuit of power before the best interest of Americans. That to me is a shame and a reminder of what we as Georgians and as Americans need to do this November to ensure we are electing good men and women who will put America and Georgia first, not a twice impeached president above all else. Now, again, from my perspective, it seems very clear that Republicans here in the State House and in Congress are more interested in playing politics than supporting real solutions at the border. And let's look at history. Every time a border solution has come up before Congress over the last 25 years, it's the Republican Party that has stood in the way. Recognizing that states and cities across the nation are reckoning with an increase in illegal immigration in 2019 levels under, again, twice impeached Donald Trump, President Biden and bipartisan United States senators delivered a tangible, negotiated, and tactical solution to the Senate and the House of Representatives via the National Security Agreement. The Biden administration and Senate negotiators who crafted this agreement are providing Americans with a serious opportunity to address border security and make progress on fixing elements of our broken immigration system. Yet again, it was twice impeached Donald Trump who directed MAGA Republicans, who apparently seem to be more and more members of this body, directed y'all to kill the toughest and fairest reforms to secure the border in decades because he thinks it will help him politically. That bill has picked up support across the political spectrum, including Trump's allies like the Border Patrol Union, who endorsed Trump's campaign for president twice, along with the Chamber of Commerce. By Republicans now withdrawing their support for immediate immigration reform in the National Security Agreement, which included the bipartisan immigration deal, Republicans are exacerbating the immigration issue, which creates real harm for American citizens and our global allies. The adverse effect is that Republicans doing this will increase dependency on public assistance by undocumented migrants by refusing them to grant work authority. House Resolution 2019 tells a lie. This resolution that y'all are jamming through the legislative process tells a lie. In 2023, the Biden administration used previously appropriated funds to continue strengthening infrastructure along the southern border. To truly solve the border challenge, we must change our asylum and immigration systems and appropriate more funds for our Border Patrol officers. And yet, Republicans are actively engaged in blocking efforts to provide any solution because increasing illegal immigration gives them a political advantage, even though it causes real harm to border states. Rather than focusing on tangible, actionable, bipartisan solutions, Republicans would rather bow down to re-elect a twice impeached man named Donald Trump, who says he will be dictator only on day one. What's happened to y'all's party? Is that where y'all are taking this country? Is that where y'all want to take this country? Unacceptable. Again, over and over and over again, by y'all's actions, you demonstrate politics over people, power over the best interests of we the people. Republicans, y'all have made it clear as to how you want to proceed on this issue and many others. How long will y'all continue to follow this twice impeached demagogue to the detriment of this country? Democrats have put forward a serious solution to this problem. And yet again, on this issue and like so many others, as a Democrat, I proudly and warmly welcome y'all to join us in bipartisan solutions for the state of Georgia and here for our country. Now, I want to walk through this resolution a bit to go through a few provisions that I found concerning, to say the least. Let's look on lines 21 to 24. I encourage members to look up what Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 of the United States Constitution says, and whether or not the United States Constitution acknowledges the state's sovereign interest in protecting their borders. That's new to me. I cannot believe that Republican members here in this body are misconstruing here in this resolution what the United States Constitution is saying. The state of Texas has declared an invasion, and it's invoked its constitutional authority to defend and protect itself. For me, that's reminiscent of secession, of the formal Confederacy. You don't like what the federal government's doing, so y'all are going to do whatever it is that y'all want. Now, as Georgia being a part of the former Confederacy, I hope today's Republican Party that controls this entire state and all three branches of government isn't manifesting a new Confederacy that is engaged in efforts that the former Confederacy engaged in. Again, we have a federalist system of government in which states and our federal government should be working in cooperation for the best interest of our country, not to politicize critically important issues along with the safety of American lives that are at issue here. Now, in this resolution, it mentions Operation Lone Star, in which I'm sure that the members here in this body who vote yes support that operation, this Operation Lone Star. Let's take a look at what this Operation Lone Star does. Operation Lone Star is causing massive human rights violations. Whether you want to call them immigrants or aliens, these are people. How many times do I hear from members in this body about Jesus, about loving your neighbor, and yet in a heartbeat for political gain, you will dehumanize people, treat them worse than animals in this Operation Lone Star, denying water to people, inhumane traps, pregnant women having miscarriages, 5 people drowned in a week. in the name of border security. Separating families. Is that what today's Republican Party is all about? Separating families in the name of border security? Is that what y'all think will make America great? Let's talk about fentanyl. Did y'all know that only 10% of fentanyl is actually coming through Texas? 10%. Whereas 90% is coming from other states. I agree with my Republican friends on the other side of the aisle. I look forward to doing everything possible to stop the flow of fentanyl. But let's not misconstrue the facts for political gain. Let's take real action to address these issues for the benefit of those we serve. Now, I remain increasingly alarmed, as demonstrated by this bill, along with other pieces of legislation that have been introduced and are being heard in committee, that demonstrate xenophobia, a hostility to immigrants, a hostility to refugees and asylum seekers. Are y'all all talk and no action when it comes to your faith? Do you leave your faith at the door before you walk into this body in pursuit of your politics and every effort possible for y'all to maintain power that, as I've mentioned before, is unrepresentative of our great diversifying state? It's a shame. The words we use, especially as leaders, have an impact. I recall during the outbreak of the pandemic, the worst public health crisis in this country's history, Republican leaders, including the twice impeached President Donald Trump, using the term China virus, by scapegoating Asian Americans broadly for a virus that killed more than 1 million Americans in less than 2.5 years, that led to a spike of hate crimes and violence and discrimination against Asian Americans. Words have power. And our voters have to understand the power that they have to hold our elected officials accountable. So long as we remain a democracy, it is we the people who maintain control, and it's ultimately we the people who will determine the future of our state and our country, to ensure we are not going backwards, to ensure that we are embracing our diverse future, embracing everybody who makes this country great, as opposed to attacking others simply for political gain. Now, I'll close with this. I'd like to bring y'all's attention to lines 28 to lines 30, where it says, "The American people continue to suffer due to inadequacies of actions taken by the federal government, and so it falls upon other public servants to speak against such injustice and to act decisively to rectify it." You know, when I first read this language, what it reminded me of was Georgians. The Georgians today who are suffering from the failures of today's Republican Party to address health care in this state. I know, and unfortunately I remain surprised at how easily mistruth and lies are spread here in this body. I've been told that for more than 10 to 15 years, Medicaid expansion, the Affordable Care Act, has been demonized by the Republican Party. And so more time is needed to get members to come across on the issue. We need more time to ensure Republicans aren't going to be primaried this March in just a few weeks. So we can't take action on this issue because our politicians matter more than the hundreds of thousands of Georgians who continue to suffer by the failure of Republican politicians here in the state of Georgia. And so just like this resolution calls upon other public servants to speak against such injustice and to act decisively. I call upon the people of Georgia to stand up and speak against such injustices and to vote this November to rectify such injustice that continues to be perpetuated by today's majority party. For all these reasons and more, I urge members of this body to vote against this terrible, ridiculous resolution, H.R. 1019. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I will yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded the well. That concludes the minority report. Now we will have 20 minutes for the chair's time. Chairman Jay Collins is recognized. Speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I won't take all of the chairman's time. I'm going to yield that in just a few moments. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I come from a long line of plain-spoken men and women, not well-spoken men and women, so I don't spend a lot of time down here in the well. But I do want to say this. The Public Safety Committee and Homeland Security Committee heard this resolution last week, and we voted it out. An unsecured border is a clear and present danger to the public safety of this state and to every state. I dare say that when most of you go home in the evening and you settle in, you lock your door because you want to keep your home safe, you want to keep your family safe. This situation at the border has become a crisis, a national crisis, a federal crisis, and something has to be done about it. I'm glad to stand here today and support our governor and support the efforts of this state to help secure that border, to make our communities safer. You know, as a funeral director, that's what I do as a profession. That's how I make my living. And there are several other members of that profession that are here today that can also speak about the rise of fentanyl deaths. It is unbelievable how many deaths that we see in our communities from fentanyl. We all know that fentanyl is manufactured in China and Mexico. And to believe that those two countries don't funnel that stuff into our country and our state, you're living in a pipe dream. And to believe that an unsecured border has no impact on fentanyl and illegal drugs coming through this state, you're living in a fool's paradise, ladies and gentlemen. It is true. The Republican Party does support law enforcement. We do support public safety. We do support public policy that protects our friends and neighbors in minority communities, that protects our friends and neighbors in rural Georgia and North Georgia and all across this state. We do. And we welcome you to come to our party and help us support those initiatives. Because, yes, we are guilty of public safety initiatives in our party. I also want to say that if we all got up today, we walked down the sidewalk here and walked a few blocks over to the federal courtroom, the Russell Federal Building. You know, before we get in that federal building, we would be scanned. We may have to produce an ID if we went into certain areas. We're checked for weapons. We're checked for drugs. That's a federal piece of property. But if you want to walk across our border at any time, just simply walk across. We're not vetting these people. We're not taking any kind of action to make sure that organized crime is not coming across the border. We know it is. All this resolution is doing is simply supporting our governor in his efforts to secure our border. My friend from the coast, Representative Petrie, was right when he said his remarks earlier. Before I yield the balance of my time, I do want to quote a president who I thought did a heck of a good job when he was in office. He said, "We must say no to illegal immigration so we can continue to say yes to legal immigration." That was President Bill Clinton. Mr. Speaker, I yield the balance of my time to the author of the bill, of the resolution.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Chairman Saines is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, my dear colleagues. A colleague, a couple of speakers earlier ago, was speaking a different language, but it wasn't Spanish. It was liberal lunacy enclosed, trying to elevate the prejudice that is encapsulated within the current policies highlighted by the minority party. A right to life without prosecution was one of the comments. And that is true. Every human, every citizen in this nation has a right to life. And there's no further detractor of life than the 1,000 immigrants who have lost that life in the dangerous plea to cross illegally our southern border. And they did so because the false narrative instituted by the party in charge at a federal level that there is hope that is not there. Another quote was that immigrants add to a stronger community. On that, I can agree. Immigrants do add to a stronger community. We have a wealth in this state of legal immigrants who contribute to this state's benefit, economic prosperity, one of which being my mother, which I'd like to tell you the highlights of her story coming to our nation. She married my father in Costa Rica. He came back to be a cop in South Florida, where she had to spend on a cop's salary $30,000 to become a legally recognized resident of this state, of this nation. There is no one who it insults further to say that our illegal immigration policy is combined with our legal immigration policy than the legal voters, legal citizens in this state, because they are the ones that have paid the biggest burden by our failed system. My dear friends, on the comment that Georgia is not a border state, I will say that I am proud to represent Georgia's border, the beautiful coastal line of South Georgia. However, every state in this nation is a border state when it comes to the failed and broken Mexico-U.S. border. This bill purely gives us an ability to ensure that the humanitarian issue, the public safety issue that is addressed here is taken care of. And with that, I will yield the remainder of the time to Representative Daniels.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Representative Daniel is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've heard a lot today from the Democrats in this chamber that they view the action we are taking today as putting politics before people. And somehow that what we're doing is just an attempt to grab political control. But I would like to remind them that Republicans are already in control in the state of Georgia. And so while their made-for-TV speeches might sound good on social media, which we know we'll see later, it does not change that their rhetoric on this and other issues is just a power grab to gain control themselves. If the Democratic Party views us as simply being partisan when we stand up for Americans, well then, their voters need to take notice. An unsecured border is dangerous for all Americans, including those who have come here legally. I had a family member killed by an illegal alien in 2012, and there was no avenue for justice. I understand that the stakes at the border have never been higher, and with record high national debt, American taxpayers should not continue to be burdened with paying for illegal immigrants when we cannot even adequately provide health care through the VA for our veterans. But if the Democrats don't care about our veterans, how about our students? Democrat mayors have closed public schools to house illegal immigrants and depriving students of their fundamental right of all backgrounds to a quality education. This is simple. An open border will only continue to put Americans last. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The lady has yielded the well. That concludes our remarks on House Resolution 1019. Is there an objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the adoption of the bill? Chair has none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this resolution now be adopted? All in favor of the adoption of the resolution will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? For what purpose does Chairman Chokus rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Yes, sir, Mr. Speaker. Isn't it true that all this talk about the closing of the borders is, well, speaking as of my grandparents were immigrants to this country, and we have many people in this chamber who have immigrated from other countries, and they need to look at the record of those countries as far as immigration. I don't think that there's another country in the world and that allows an open border to this degree. And I can speak as, and my ancestral home is Greece. It has closed borders. Most of the borders, or if not all the borders in Europe, have closed borders.
Is this an inquiry or a speech?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Anyway, I support this legislation, and I challenge our members to name a country that has open borders. Thank you.
Good inquiry, and I agree. Chairman Bonner, for what purpose do you rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that in 2021 I had the opportunity to travel with Governor Kemp to the border to visit with our National Guard troops that are currently serving there? And during the course of that visit, we had an opportunity to hear from the Customs and Border Patrol, and we got to witness firsthand the horrors that are taking place on the border with bringing fentanyl in and smuggling humans across our border.
I'm sure the gentleman knows what he speaks. He's a proud member of the Guard, and I know he's traveled to that border as well. For what purpose does Representative Gamble rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that according to the Daily Signal, more have been caught illegally crossing the southern border in 1 year of the Biden presidency than the entire Trump presidency?
I don't know anything about Daily Signal, but I'm sure the gentleman believes that. For what purpose does Representative Maynor rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that yesterday I presented in the Education Committee House Bill 127 that supported legal immigrant children to have interpretation services in their IEP programs?
I remember hearing mention of that, so I'm sure the lady's correct.
Is it further true, Mr. Speaker? Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
That legal immigrants from across the state of Georgia, including some traveling more than 4 hours, came to speak on behalf of the bill? And is it not further true that, as my other representatives have stated, this bill is about legal versus illegal immigration, and right now not only do legal immigrants and American citizens not think that it is appropriate to give $53 million cash cards out, as they're doing in New York, to illegal immigrants, versus there are American citizens that have needs that are not being addressed, and that is why I'm supporting this bill. Is that true, Mr. Speaker?
I'm sure that's true. There's lots of information flowing around this proposition. For what purpose does Representative Kennard rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that President Barack Obama deported more undocumented individuals than any other president?
I'm sure the gentleman knows of what he speaks, or he would not have asked the question. For what purpose does Chair Lady Houston rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it not true that I've heard people talk about Republicans and Democrats And isn't it not true that we better think that we're Americans every once in a while first?
I think that's probably a fact we can all agree on, I hope. Well, I think we've debated this question and very thoroughly at this point. So, have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the adoption of House Resolution 1019, the yeas are 98, the nays are 71. The resolution, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. For what purpose does Representative Wilkerson rise?
In accordance with House Rule 143, I'd like to ask for reconsideration on the next legislative day. I enjoyed the debate.
The chair is not going to recognize the gentleman for that motion. Okay, we're moving on to some announcements that need to be made as we prepare for lunch. Chairman Parsons, I think you have an announcement that impacts our lunch plans.
Thank you, Speaker.
Give the gentleman your attention, please.
We have a EUT, Energy Utilities and Communications Committee meeting scheduled for 3. I don't know how this will impact it. It is scheduled for 3, but if we're late, there's a committee in there before us, and I've asked them or tell them they can run late if they need to. But we're scheduled for 3, and as shortly thereafter as possible. Energy Utilities and Telecommunications. We do have a bill in there that we need to look at. Thank you.
We'll probably be in this room, Mr. Chairman, at 3 o'clock. Chairman Williamson is recognized for an announcement, and then we'll have Chairman Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There will be a majority caucus luncheon immediately for our lunch break in room 403.
Chairman Stevens is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Following lunch at 1:15 in room 406 at CLOB, the Economic Development and Tourism Committee will meet. We have a presentation from a Hyundai subsidiary for EV tolls, electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, and when they're going to be produced.
Is that an airplane or a helicopter? Chairman Gunther is recognized for an announcement. Chairman Stan Gunther.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House Judiciary Committee was scheduled to have a meeting this afternoon starting, I think, at 1:30. We're going to move that now to upon adjournment when we get back from the recess. So, thank you.
We have one more announcement, but members, if you have a page, you need to, wow, we have a lot of pages. Some of them are going to have to leave us, so we're going to take some page photos immediately upon recess. So if you have a page, you need to find your way down front. Okay. This House will stand in recess until 2 p.m., and then we'll come back and complete the legislation of the day. This House will stand in recess.